Thanks for tuning in to As the Tire Turns podcast. Before we dive into this week's episode, I'd like to thank our sponsor, AME International. Tire professionals insist on AME. I'd also like to recognize the AACF. For over 65 years, the Automotive Aftermarket Charitable Foundation has stood by those in the automotive aftermarket industry and their families during life's toughest challenges. Since 1959, with the incredible support of industry partners, AACF has provided vital assistance to individuals and families facing financial hardship due to unforeseen circumstances, such as floods, earthquakes, storms, fires, catastrophic medical conditions, life-changing accidents, devastating fatalities, and more. AACF offers a straightforward application process and a quick turnaround time for those needing support during critical moments. Visit www.aftermarketcharity.org to access the application and learn more about how AACF can assist during times of need. Together, we can make a difference in the lives of our automotive aftermarket family. Support AACF today. And now, As the Tire Turns. We're back with another episode of As the Tire Turns podcast. Today I'm joined with Kevin Rohlwing, the Chief Technology Officer of...
Chief Technical Officer.
Sorry. Chief Technical Officer of the Tire Industry Association.
That's okay. Doesn't matter.
Kevin, thank you for joining me.
Glad to be here.
I'm excited to, when I dreamt up this podcast series, I thought, Kevin, I don't know if you're my first guy on here, but I think you're pretty close to the top. But anyway.
Bottom of the barrel, but that's all right.
So if this is the first series where we filmed a bunch and then we kind of staggered the release and so on, but this is the first series where people have had an opportunity to maybe have seen it. No judgment if you haven't seen them, but
I have.
Okay, so a big thing is always, for me, how did you get into the tire industry? And you are second generation or third generation? Yes,
third I was born into it.
So
I was born into it. Yeah, I didn't have a choice.
I know Chicago, but suburb of
Elgin.
Chicago or
Elgin, Illinois.
Okay.
Elgin, Illinois. Yeah, my grandfather and his brother started the business. It would have been probably in the 50s or 40s, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
And then my father and his brother took it over, and I worked there with all of my brothers and all of my cousins. So, yeah, I was born into the business. I didn't know anything else.
And primarily, was it passenger, retail, commercial?
We did passenger, light truck, commercial truck, farm, small OTR, and industrial. And I did everything. I was the floater.
Yeah.
I was the floater. If the car side was busy, I was on car side. If truck side was busy, I was on truck side. If we needed a service call, I'd run a service call. I had the worst truck. We had the spare truck. Every dealership has a spare truck.
Yeah.
That was my truck.
Yeah.
So when we needed the spare truck to go out, I did that. I would run the office. I would fill out invoices. I was in, so I pretty much did everything in the business at the age of 17, 18 years old. I was in the office. I was in a truck. I was in the shop. I was out in the field. I didn't do a lot of earth mover. I didn't do anything on the crane truck. We had a guy that was experienced with that. But small earth movers, 17.5, 19.5s. 20.5, 25s that I could do on a tire machine or something like that. But most of it was truck and automotive. Yeah, I did a lot of truck tires. More truck tires than car tires. Yeah. For sure.
Yeah, okay.
I'm a truck tire guy.
And I know just recently, unfortunately, your dad passed.
Yes, he did. Yes.
Did he retire from the tire business? Did he sell the...
He did. He sold it. He sold it to Pomps. He sold the business to Pomps 2008.
Okay.
Around that time.
But it was his livelihood, his whole career.
Yeah, every scrap of food that I ate, every piece of clothing that I wore, every roof over my head.
Provided by rubber.
Provided by rubber, exactly.
Yeah.
Smell of money.
Yeah, exactly.
Smell of money.
We talked while preparing for this a little bit about sports, but I knew Cubbies, right? I was going to say, are you Chicago all the way on all the sports?
Yeah, I would say definitely Bears and no one else.
The Bears.
Blackhawks and no one else.
Hockey, yeah.
Cubs and Orioles now. I've been in the city of Baltimore now for 20 years.
Yeah.
I have come to appreciate the Baltimore Orioles as my American League team.
Yeah.
But they will not come above the Cubs. If I go to a Cubs-Orioles game, I'm wearing Cubs.
Yeah.
All right? But I'm an Orioles fan the rest of the the rest of the season, if the Cubs and the Orioles met in the World Series, I would be a Cubs fan. I'm going to go Cubs. No Sox. No Sox. And the Bulls, whatever. I mean, the Michael Jordan. I got to see Michael Jordan play live.
Yeah.
And I was there for all of the Michael Jordan years.
Yeah.
And we haven't even come close to thinking about smelling what that would be like.
Ever since then.
Yeah.
I got to see him one year, which is for another story, in an exhibition game, but over in France. That's the only time I got to see MJ play live.
Yeah, I saw him in the old stadium. I saw him in the old Mecca up in Milwaukee.
Yeah.
When I was in college, he played up there. We went to a few of those games. Saw him in the United Center as well. But just it was a great time to be a Chicago fan. During those times.
Absolutely.
But certainly if I'm going to look at it from a ranking, it's always going to be Bears first.
Yeah.
I'm an NFL football guy. I love football. And I'll be a Bears fan forever. I got no room for anybody else in football. I take that back. It's the Bears and whoever plays the Packers.
Yeah. I was going to say sometimes you're cheering against people.
Yeah, I'm whoever plays the Packers would be my second favorite team.
I can relate. So
third favorite would be the Vikings.
Okay.
And then fourth favorite would be the Lions.
Well, it's funny too because
whoever's playing them. Yeah.
Right, exactly. So I say some people take issue with two teams. You got to pick one team and so on. But I'm the same way. I grew up outside of Philly, so the Eagles, but living in Tampa Bay area for so long, Buccaneers, and I always feel like I felt like Richard Williams when Venus played Serena, right?
Yeah.
Kind of the two babies and so on. But I would resonate towards the Eagles.
It's like when the Eagles and the Chiefs played, and Mama Kelsey was I'm rooting for the offense.
Yeah, that's true. That's exactly right.
I'm rooting for the offense.
That's exactly
same thing.
right.
Same thing here. I agree.
Exactly right.
I
so
agree.
you got to be a Harry Caray fan then.
Oh, absolutely. How can you not be?
Okay, absolutely.
It's one of my favorite Harry Caray stories was he was calling a game. I think it was the Cincinnati Reds, and it was I think his name was Dave Collins.
Yeah.
And Harry's like, now up to bat is Tom Collins. and Steve Stone was like, Harry, I think you mean Dave Collins. Oh, that's right. I was thinking about after the game. Ball one to Dave Collins. But just seamless.
Absolutely.
He was short. I got to meet him.
Really?
We were a General Tire dealer.
Yeah.
And General Tire had bought a bunch of spots on WGN radio.
Wow.
So I got to sit in the WGN radio booth and listen to Harry Caray call like 3 games.
That's
three
amazing.
Innings, 2 or 3 innings. And he was like short, like 5'1", 5'2".
Wow.
And like 5 feet round too.
Yeah,
It's like a ball.
Yeah.
But he had the glasses and everything, and he had quit drinking by then.
Yeah.
Because he couldn't drink anymore.
Couldn't drink on air. Yeah.
Oh yeah, he would be out in the bleachers.
Budweiser.
Absolutely, he was a Bud man.
He's a Cub fan and a Bud man.
I'm a Cub fan. Well, he originally was a Sox, which Sox fans. Oh, he was the original Sox announcer.
Gotcha.
Before he came to the Cubs, which the Sox. Another reason to hate the Cubs fans.
Yeah.
but certainly, he was a Sox first, and then he came to the Cubs, but he was always a Bud man.
Yeah, growing up, again, for me, cable TV, you had the Mets, right?
Yeah.
WWR, you had the Braves on TBS, and you had WGN.
WGN and the Cubs.
For the Cubs. So, and then it was great, right? Because Wrigley was day games. So you come home from school, and there'd be a baseball game, and then you could watch an evening game, right?
Yeah, my brother actually was at the first night game at Wrigley.
Really?
He went to the first night game at Wrigley. Yep.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
That's
I did
awesome.
not go.
Very cool.
I didn't want to spend that kind of money.
No.
Yeah, that's okay. I'll watch it on TV.
Very cool. Well, it's funny. I was going to say it's kind of a different era. Talking about broadcaster drinking on air and slurring speech and so on at the end, and I don't know if that's a good time for a segue into the tire industry per se, right? But kind of a different era from a safety perspective, and I know that's a big part. I got a lot of topics that we want to talk about, but what's maybe the biggest change that you see in your right? Because we were talking, I think 96 is when you joined.
Yeah, I was hired in 96. Yeah, first training class in 97.
And was that? Did you move from Illinois to
Louisville?
To Louisville. So
yeah,
I see. Doggone it.
Yeah.
I had that one on there. Louisville, Louisville, right?
Louisville.
So Louisville. So that's
Louisville. You gotta have stuff in your mouth.
That's like the locals would say, right?
Yeah, if you're from Louisville, you're not from there.
Yeah, right. So
you gotta be Louisville.
So
shout out to Louisville.
Yeah, exactly. So
great place, loved it. Eight of the best years of my life.
So 20. Yeah, I was going to say. So 8 years in Louisville.
96 to 2004.
Yeah.
My son was born there.
Yeah.
I have friends and family there that will always be friends and family. Loved Louisville, miss it every day.
Yeah.
But, work was in Maryland. So,
Absolutely.
So we moved.
Yeah. So what are some of the positive changes or progress, I guess, that you've seen, from that time period, like launching something that really didn't exist, from an industry perspective as training and certifications and curriculum and so on, kind of building it from the ground up to, how much progress, how much easier is it now, right? And
Well, I'd say culture. I think that's the one thing that I point to the most in terms of changes is just the changes in culture. I mean, when I first started in 96 and we started teaching our first classes in 97, we had to convince people that they had to be OSHA compliant.
right.
They didn't even understand that. They didn't even, and I'd show them the standard. Like, oh, well, that doesn't apply to me. I'm like, well, actually it does. So I think that was where it kind of started, but it was a culture of safety. It was, well, I don't have to train them. It's how hard is it? It's tires. Well, it's really hard if you do something stupid and you kill yourself.
For sure.
And so I think that's the part that means the most to me, is that we've changed a culture, and that, we said it today in the meeting that, 20 years ago you could have never had a group of safety professionals in the tire industry sit down and exchange ideas because it didn't exist. It was old Joe method, Old
Right.
Joe told new Joe, and that
Shadow the crusty veteran. And,
it's the perpetuation of bad habits.
Yeah.
So you got old Joe shows new Joe his bad habits, and then new Joe becomes old Joe and has 2 generations of bad habits that he goes to the 3rd Joe.
Yeah.
And you could have 7, 8, 9 generations of bad habits in a company after 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
And who's to say that the best guy is the right guy?
For sure.
So I think that was the big part in the beginning, was just, let's start establishing what the correct safety procedures are. And then it was about getting buy-in from ownership, and as well, that it's great that you got all these wonderful safety products and programs that are out there, but somebody has to pay for it. And if the people writing the checks don't see value, they're not going to do it. So I think that had a lot to do with it. And I would say culture, again, I just think that the awareness in this industry is a lot better today, and the level of safety. And I think now, especially, it's so hard to find people to do this work that we got to take care of them. We got to protect them. We got to be aware of their health and safety, because they're hard to find. I mean, a tire tech, as I've said this in many places before, it's not an easy job. So you got to find the right people, and then you got to take care of them. You got to pay them. You got to give them the benefits, and you got to give them that training so that they understand out of the gate, look, you're valuable to me, and I want you coming home at the end of the day, and I want you working here a long time. And the only way we're going to do that is you follow these rules.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably the one thing that I would point at the most, is just that shift in culture from, oh, well, we can teach anybody to change tires, tire busters. I hate it.
Yeah.
Tire buster. I'm not a tire buster.
Right.
All right. And that's why from the beginning I insisted on tire technicians.
Yeah.
I'm like, they are a technician. And from 1997 forward, we always use that word to describe them. I don't want to be a tire guy or a tire buster or a tire changer.
Yeah.
You're a tire technician.
Yeah.
There is a technical aspect to the job that needs to be acknowledged, and I think that was why we started that from way back when, and we've carried it now. When I first started, it was just commercial, and then we added automotive, and then we added earth mover, and then we added farm, and then we added industrial, and I think, again, just covering all those areas, and really, we've talked about it again today in our meeting that we should celebrate these guys, because they are a very important part of our economy. And I always tell people, without tires, your world stops.
Yeah.
You have nothing without tires. You don't eat, you don't live, you don't go anywhere, you're gone. I mean, you have 72 hours.
Yeah.
72 hours with no trucks, and we have complete anarchy. The grocery stores will be sold out. There will be no gas in gas stations. We never recover.
Right.
It's scary when you think about it. But I mean, the world runs on tires.
Yeah.
And it gets everything to where you're at, and the technician is the one that is the final piece of the puzzle.
Keeps it going.
Well, I mean, technology in vehicles changes, but it still takes a human being to get that tire on that rim and get that rim on that vehicle. And,
correct.
And do it safely and correctly for their safety and ours. I mean, we all travel the roads on these, with all these different trucks and cars, and wheel comes off of a truck or something blows or fails.
It's chaos. Yeah.
It is, and it's going to be tragic. And safety's a big part of what we do. And we always say safety on the highway and safety in the shop for that reason. I want the techs to be safe in the shop. But at the same point in time, we got to acknowledge that there's safety on the road. I mean, you got millions of cars out there traveling billions of miles, and the number of tire incidences are small in terms of percentages, but they're usually pretty major accidents or instances in that sense. So they get a lot of publicity. I mean, 10 out of 100 million tires goes bad.
Right.
But if those 10 result in fatalities and accidents and stuff like that, everybody harps on it and focuses on it.
You certainly see
but,
it. Yeah.
But percentage-wise, it's small. It's less than a tenth or 100th of a percent.
Yeah.
When you look at the number of tires and wheels and vehicles that are on the road every day, and so much of it is done right.
Yeah.
But the problem is when it goes bad, it goes real bad.
It goes real bad, yeah. Harvey Brodsky, I remember, used to, from Tire Retread Information Bureau and then later RTA, yeah.
The voice of retreading.
Exactly. He would say almost like the tire was too good, right? Because think about it. If your car engine was only operating at 50%, and like you would notice it immediately and so on, but you could be driving down the road with a tire 50% underinflated, right? And may not necessarily know, right? It may be visible at that point, but yeah. So anyway,
it's the only component on the car or a vehicle where without it, it doesn't move.
Yeah.
I can move a car without an engine.
Yeah.
I can move a car without a transmission.
Yeah.
I can move a car without any component except the tires.
Yeah.
If the tires aren't there, that thing ain't moving.
Skidding. Yeah.
We can hook a horse up to it.
Yeah.
Drag it with a horse, as long as it's got tires.
Yeah.
But if it doesn't have tires,
it's not going.
It's a lawn ornament.
You mentioned your son.
Yes.
I know you're active in the Scouts, right? So,
getting less active now. He's older, so
okay. So
we're still involved,
right?
Peripherally.
Yeah.
But yes, definitely enjoyed the. He was big on it. We travel.
Absolutely.
So we've missed how many recitals and events in your children's lives have you missed over the course of your career, much like I have. So I made a commitment to him when he was very young I'm going to make Scouts a priority.
Yeah.
And I think we've missed in 13 years, I think we've missed maybe 2 camping trips.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe 2. But it was important to him, and I just, it was like, you have to pick, right?
Sure.
And I only have one child, so and it's just him.
Yeah.
But it was Scouts are going to be our thing. It was me and him, summer camps. We've been all over the place. We had such a good time, and Sandra Martinez, our COO, and I have had this conversation. Her son was very involved in band.
Yeah.
And same thing. She's missed all these events in his life.
Yeah.
And I said, look, you need to commit to this.
Absolutely.
And her and her husband committed to it. And when we joke about it now, that he's forgotten all about the things that you've missed.
Yeah.
But he remembers all the band competitions and all the events. She's been on MetLife Field for competitions. Her son's won 2 national championships.
Yeah.
My son's an Eagle Scout.
Yeah.
And they remember that. He doesn't remember that I missed a karate thing or a taekwondo thing or whatever. But he doesn't remember all the court of honors that I've missed.
Right.
But he remembers every camping trip. He remembers every summer camp. He remembers those key events in his life.
Absolutely.
He remembers those. He'll forget about the other stuff.
Yeah.
Because they don't, they're kids growing up. They remember the big things.
Yeah.
They're going to forget the little things. And,
Yeah.
and I made that commitment to him and still have. I mean, I'm still involved in it. There's still some boys in the troop that I've, and
mentor.
Yeah, I mean, it's rewarding to see them ask for your advice and follow your advice, and then come back to you years later and say, thank you for giving me that advice. I had one that he wanted to buy a car. He wanted to buy some stupid Scion 2-door sports model.
Yeah.
And he's like, what should I do? And I'm like, just give me your money and let me waste it, because that's what you're going to do. I said, that is the dumbest thing you could possibly do. And he's like a 16-year-old kid. He's like, but I worked really hard for all that money. I said, yeah, so don't piss it away on some stupid car that's going to cost you a fortune to insure, and it's going to cost you a fortune in maintenance.
Yeah.
I said, go out, find yourself a nice used Camry,
okay,
and put your money down on that and save half that money you've saved, and do something else with it. And I saw him like 8-10 years later, and he was like, I still got the car.
Did he end up buying it?
He bought a used Camry.
Oh, gotcha.
He went out, bought a used Camry, and 10 years after I gave him that advice, he still had that car. He's like, the thing won't die.
That's too
He's
funny.
like, and what am I going to do? He's like, my brother tried to wreck it, and it wouldn't wreck. But that's rewarding. I mean, I get a lot. I'm not, I'm an umpire. I'm balls and strikes, safe and out, fair and foul.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think kids appreciate that. I think especially the teenage boys that, some of them didn't always have father figures, and not like I'm
for sure
by any stretch a father figure or a mentor, because I'm far from that. But I'm going to give them honest advice.
Yeah.
And I think that's what they appreciate, is that Mr. Kevin is what they would call me at that point, in the troop. But I would always be straight with them, and I wouldn't treat them like kids. Look, if you do something, I'm going to call you on it. But I'm at the same point in time, if you ask me advice, I'm going to give you my advice, and if you follow it, you follow it, and if you don't, you don't.
Right. We're gathered here now for our summer board meeting, which you've mentioned a couple times.
Yes.
We just talked about a new tip, the tech tip that's coming out, but and that'll be fantastic. But maybe we have a segment for Mr. Kevin, or Kevin keeps it real.
That's
right.
That's a bad idea. That's a terrible idea.
I know we're going to have to go find a new sponsor, because Scion probably won't be too. No, I'm kidding. But we
build a better car.
All right. So one of the things that came out, it was announced earlier this year at the Off the Road conference, was a Technician of the Year, specifically Earth Mover technician, and named after somebody who I had the pleasure of getting to know, and was always a friendly face, and saw him in all corners of the world, always with his camera, right? As a fellow guy, back when I had a full head of hair, used to sport the flat top,
always
right?
Did.
He always had that perfectly manicured.
That was once a week.
Flat top, was it? That's why.
He was once a week. It started getting a little shaggy, and I'm like, how could you tell?
Yeah. But anyway, so Marvin Bozarth is who we're talking about.
Yes.
But you, for certainly the latter part, right? He had a long, storied career, but you worked hand in hand with him.
He hired me.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about
blame him.
What that means to you, right? At first, when you probably get hired, you probably don't necessarily realize what kind of an icon he is, and
I actually knew. I actually knew that. Yeah, we were members of ARA.
Okay.
We were members of the ARA, and we got the retreading journal.
Yeah.
So we got the retreading journal at the shop,
yeah.
and I would read it every time it came in.
Yeah.
Because I was interested in that. I'm selling retreads to my members, to my customers. I didn't have a retread plant. We didn't have a retread plant. We retreaded from someone else. But we sold a lot of retreads. I'm like, this guy knows a lot about retreads.
He would always have the figure it out in the back of the book,
it was crazy. Right? And every time I'd pick it up, I'd learn something.
Yeah.
And I just was enthralled with learning more about it, because it would help me sell things. I was in sales at that point in time. Selling retreads, when I can explain it, you can sell it. You know
Sure.
as well as anything.
Absolutely.
If you can explain it, you can sell it. You can't explain it, you're going to have a harder time selling it. And there was a blind ad in Tire Business, and I responded to a blind ad in Tire Business. Shout out Tire Business, thank you.
Yeah.
But that was always a staple of as well, and Modern Tire Dealer and Tire Review. But Tire Business I got first.
Yep.
And I saw the blind ad, and I'm like looking at what it is, and I'm going, I can do that. I can do that too. I can do all those things. The only thing I had in the list that I couldn't do was speak Spanish.
Really?
Yeah, I mean everything else that it asked for, all the other requirements for the position, and I'm like, what the heck, So I was actually Michael Jordan. I was watching a Bulls playoff game, and sent in my cover letter with my resume.
No kidding.
And during just watching a Bulls game, I'm in between writing and
typing away on the word processor.
Exactly. No, I had a computer by then. It was '96. I'm not that old. Good Lord. It was the spring of '96, but it was a Bulls game, and I sent it off, and it was like those. Okay, I tried. You know what I mean? You never know what's going to happen with those things. I sent it off, and then literally a week later, I get a phone call. And he's like, this is Marvin Bozarth with the American Retreaders Association.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I know who you are.
Yeah.
And you're calling me.
Yeah.
And we talked for about a half hour, 45 minutes on the phone. And he said, I want you to come down to Louisville, and I want to meet you.
Thanks for listening to As the Tire Turns. Join us next week when we'll continue the conversation with Tire Industry Association's Kevin Rohlwing.